Today, I'm going to be making 2 vintage cakes using 2 thrifted vintage cake pans. I found this bundt pan at my local thrift store for $1.50. From my research, I think it's from the 1960s or 1970s. And I also discovered that around that same time period, there was a very popular recipe called socket to me. This recipe was popularized by being on a Duncan Hines cake mix box. So today, I'm going to be following the original socket to me recipe. Here are the ingredients that the original recipe called for. Duncan Hines butter golden cake mix, 8 ounces sour cream, ½ cup vegetable oil, 1/4 cup sugar, 1/4 cup water, 4 eggs, and a nut filling. The original filling was made with pecans, but I had a ton of almonds, so I swapped out the pecans for almonds. So this recipe is actually pretty straightforward. All I have to do is combine the ingredients. So I asked my grandma about this recipe to see if she'd ever made it, and she had. And she also warned me to grease my pan super well. So I have put a whole bunch of oil and stuff that will hopefully make the cake come out super easy. Now that we've mixed our cake batter, we need to take 2/3 of our batter and put it into the bundt pan. Next, I'm gonna put in this mixture of brown sugar, cinnamon, and almonds as a little filling layer in the middle. Oh my gosh, I am making a mess. All right, time to put in the last bit of our batter here. I've never used a bundt pan before, and I'm like scared I'm gonna get all the ingredients in the batter in this middle hole here. Our cake is ready to put in the oven at 375 for 45 to 55 minutes. So let's get started on the next cake. I saw this pan hiding under some other kitchenware at the thrift store, and it was only $3. In my research, I discovered that this is a Nordic ware pan that was made exclusively for Williams-Sonoma. The original pan was made in 2002, and from my research, it looks like they have discontinued this pan. The original recipe for this cake pan is called the Lemon Daisy Cake. So that's the cake we'll be making today. Now, I'll be honest, I have used this pan before, and I actually was pretty disappointed with how my baked good looked at the end. It wasn't cake, so that might have had something to do with it, but I just felt like the flower design wasn't really showing up very well. So today, while I am going to use the original recipe, I am gonna put a little bit of twist on it to hopefully make these flowers really pop. This cake is gonna be a little bit more difficult from the last one because I have to make everything from scratch. The first step of this recipe is that we're going to sift together our flour, baking powder, and salt. I'm not sure why, but it said to do this over like parchment paper, or as I'm doing it, over a baking pan instead of doing it into a bowl, which I think is kind of interesting. I just read the instructions for the next part of the cake, and this might be a good time to tell you that this is my first time making a cake not from a box. So I am scared. It says, in a bowl of an electric mixer fitted with a flat beater,
beat the butter on medium-high speed until smooth, 1 to 2 minutes. Gradually add the sugar, beating until light and fluffy, 3 to 5 minutes. Beat in the vanilla and lemon oil, add the yolks and eggs one at a time, beating well after each addition.
And scraping down the sides of the bowl as needed. I'm just staring at it because I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I don't know when it's good or not. It's time to add our flour and our buttermilk. Our bundt cake. That's the timer for our bundt cake. Okay, let's pull it out. Let's see how it looks. Okay, I think it's done. I think our cake batter is looking pretty good. So as I mentioned earlier, I really want the flowers to pop. And the way I'm gonna do that is with food dye. Now the goal is, there's the center of the flower and the petals of the flower, and I want each to be a separate color. That's actually kind of a pretty color. It's maybe not the color that I was hoping for, but it is pretty. Our pan is well greased and ready for me to scoop our batters into it and hopefully make some beautiful flowers. So as you can see, that didn't quite go to plan. I decided to just do all the pinky red flowers because the batter was spreading a lot. So now I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with this batter because it is a little bit more yellow orangey tint than the rest. I'm contemplating just pouring it over the batter I have and then filling the rest in with the rest of the cake batter. Okay, I've got to be honest with you. I don't feel like this is going very well. I don't think this is going to turn out very cute, and I almost feel like maybe I've wasted a cake, which is a little bit disappointing. So I guess let's finish making the cake. I can tell that this is disastrous. It's moving all the batter around. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. What is this cake gonna look like? I don't even know. I spent so much time on this. And for the next 50 minutes, I will be praying that our cake turns out okay. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Will the cake come completely out of the pan? All right, here we go. Pretty good. There's a little bit still in here, but mostly came out pretty nice and clean. Since a little bit did break off when I took it out of the pan, I do want to try it. A big thing in the 60s and 70s was that the Duncan Hine cakes were so good, you didn't even need frosting on them, which is our next step. So I do want to taste how good is the cake by itself. Honestly, not that bad. So I've made this glaze that I'm now gonna put on top of the cake. It is time for the big reveal. It's still hot, but the instructions said it only had to rest for 10 minutes before flipping it. So let's cross our fingers and see what happens. Ooh. Okay, not sure how to get it back up. We're gonna do this carefully so I don't burn myself. Okay. All right. Ah! Okay, so our dye did absolutely nothing to make the flowers pop. That is so disappointing. All that time, all that effort, and there's not even like any sort of differentiation of color, which is crazy to me. I don't know why. That's crazy to me, actually. I'm just finishing up a glaze that is supposed to go on top of this cake. Now, the original glaze does call for rum, but I don't drink, and because it's not gonna be baked out, I'm not gonna include it in the recipe. It's a lot of sugar. This is really interesting to me because both the last and this called for a glaze, but the glazes are completely different. This one's very, very, very liquidy. Like, I feel like this is wrong, but I've followed the instructions, minus the rum. Now it is time to do a taste test of both of our cakes. I am super curious to see how the filling layer looks. right. Wow, that looks pretty good. Look at that, nice little layering right there. Ooh. Here we go. I'm gonna get a little bit from this side because that'll have the filling, the icing, and the actual cake part itself. I'll be honest, I think it tastes better with the icing. So I know there's already a lot of sugar in there, but the icing really does do something for this cake. I'm not sure, it just needs that extra little kick of sweetness. I'm actually not a big fan of the nut filling, but I typically don't like nuts in my dessert, so I'm gonna chalk it up to that. Time to cut a little piece of this. Here we go. Okay, I have to be honest. I'm genuinely a little disappointed. Not only because the color is not there, but because there is a lot of lemon extract in here, both in the glaze and in the cake itself. And I can hardly taste like any lemon. This was a really fun experiment. I enjoyed getting to try out some recipes that I'd never seen before and test my baking skills. I can genuinely say I'm not sure which cake won, the 1960s or 70s or the 2002. Let me know which one you would want to try most in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!